Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So you can tell from the title, we are going to be talking about the books that I read in the months of January, February, March. Instead of doing like a monthly thing, I thought, because I don't read a lot of books, I thought instead of just doing really short videos every month, I'm just going to do a quarterly review, I suppose. So if you want to see what books I read and what I thought about them for January, February and March, then keep on watching. Also, just pardon the fact that I look like this because I've just finished work and I've just had dinner. It is what it is, and we're talking about books today, not my face or my hair, so we're just gonna have to bear with. Alright, so for the month of January, I read a big fat 3 books. You might think, oh, that's not too much. I read like 2 books last year, if that. I decided to kind of get back into reading just before Christmas, hence why this is like a thing now on my channel. And I couldn't have picked a better book to start with, and that, my guy, is Will Carver's Good Samaritans. This I don't really see much of anywhere, to be completely honest. However, this I gave a 4 out of 5. So if you're someone like me who enjoys crime thrillers, then this is the one for you. I would not recommend this for anyone who is like young, and I mean like maybe anyone below the age of 18, just because it has it's not even like there's like spicy scenes, but then it's just kind of messed up because of like what happens and everything. Basically, the premise of this book is you have your main character. His name is Seth. He is an insomniac and he lives at home with his wife. So at night, when his wife goes up to bed or falls asleep, whatever, he goes through a phone list that I think it's like a client list with telephone numbers, and he just goes through them. Most of the time they tell him to F off, but now and again he will get that one person who'll be like a companion to him and kind of take pity over him. And one of those people is Hadley Surf, I believe her name is. And she picks up the phone, but she picks up the phone thinking that she is on the phone to the Samaritans, the suicide helpline. And I think she was dialing them as Seth was calling her, so when she picked up, she thought that she had got through. And so Seth clocks this on and kind of takes advantage of that. And you first think that you only have Seth's point of view, but you actually start to gain more point of views as the book goes on. They don't all start from the beginning. Some of them are only like right at the end. And I think you have the point of view of 1, 2, 3, 4 people all together. And it doesn't get confusing. It's really well organized because it actually adds to like the suspense. But yeah, I thought that this was great. So yeah, gave this a 4 out of 5. So after I read that, I wanted to find something a little bit more different and not in the same genre, and so I picked up one of the most hyped up books that I've seen on social media, and with every fibre of my being, I think it's very well deserved, and it is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You probably know what this is all about already, you've probably read it yourself, but just in case you haven't, it follows Evelyn Hugo, I think back in the, so 50s to 80s was when she was like a big Hollywood star, and then it jumps forward to the future time, so it kind of does that. It's almost like each chapter of the book is dedicated to her husbands, and some of them are obviously very short, some of them much longer, and you do feel a lot of emotions going through this book. So worth the hype. I fully felt like I was being transported in time. I know it sounds really silly, but Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote this in such a way that you felt like you just hopped into a time machine and you're really living it. And I'm not really that much of a fan of like any sort of historical fiction. I like things set in the present day unless it's like classic literature, but this was beautiful, and I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. Okay, so after that, I picked up a shorter book just because I was feeling a little bit like, whew, for, my first month. I then picked up Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. So this book follows the story of a young man who ventures off. I think he's trying to get to Egypt because he was told that he had a treasure waiting for him, and he had to go to Egypt in order to access this treasure. So during his journey trying to find this treasure, he meets a lot of people, goes through a lot of things, learns a lot of lessons. Now, this, entertainment-wise, as a fiction book, if we're looking at it from that perspective, I didn't find very entertaining. just because the story's not really for me. There's not really anything to it, if that makes sense. Of course there is, but in terms of like shock factor or the plot or anything like that, it's not the book that you would pick up if you want something that has like a intense and deep plot. However, I think although this is a fiction book, I think it's universally acknowledged that it's actually a self-help book, because although I didn't enjoy reading this too much, I did find that the impact that this had on me after I've read it was, yeah, I was finding myself subconsciously applying the things that I learned from reading this book. And I suppose that's what a good self-help book does. It's not even me consciously doing it. I've just picked it up from reading this book. I don't know, I was very surprised when I clocked myself applying the principles that I learned from this book into my life. Like I said, entertainment wise, not the best, but it is still worth a read, because I think the lessons that you do pick up from the book are so easily applied and literally like a thin book, so you could literally do this in one sitting. Just for that, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, giving a lot of like half points, because I don't know, I just feel like some of them I couldn't give like the lower full number, but then I couldn't justify having it the higher full number as well. But yeah. Okay, February we read 3 books as well, and I followed kind of the same pattern of like 2 chunkier books and then 1 small one. So the first book that I read in February is probably my favourite read of the year so far out of this whole entire collection of books I've read, and I really had to hold myself back from binging this, and by doing so I actually, instead of reading it all in one sitting, I read it in 2 sittings. Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us. I am not even kidding, this is so hyped up, and so even that in itself I was like, probably won't be that great, or it's not as great as people make it out to be, but 100% well worth the hype. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. If you have been living under a rock and you don't know what this book is about, it follows the story of Lily, who is a young woman living in Boston, I believe, and it jumps from her present day having a relationship with this guy that she met who's a doctor called Ryle, and he seems absolutely perfect, but things happen, and you'll know what I mean. And it also jumps back to of her like reading her journal entries from when she was a young teenager, and her romance with a homeless boy called Atlas, and then slowly but surely obviously things intertwine and everything. I know a lot of people really cried at this book, like really, I mean like bawled their eyes out. However, I didn't. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't. I did feel obviously super sad quite a lot, but it is a very, very sad, bittersweet, or it's sad in a sense that, okay, so you need to search up trigger warnings because it does deal with domestic abuse, but it's a beautiful story, and I think it's amazing how Colleen Hoover actually based this off of her own mother's life story, in the sense of what she went through. But yeah, this is so good. I've actually got goosebumps just talking about this book. That's crazy. But this, my guy, is a 5 out of 5. Definitely recommend. So the second book I read in February is Gail Honeyman's Eleanor Oliphant Is Completely Fine. This is probably the chunkiest book I've read so far. This I thought was going to be so bad, and I was just finding her so annoying, her as in Eleanor Oliphant, the character. And then I realised this was actually just an example of a well-written, disliked character, if that makes sense. And then you root for her all of a sudden. It follows Eleanor Oliphant and her very mundane, bland life. She does the same thing every day. She doesn't have any friends really. She's a bit of a loner. She has a drinking problem. So again, maybe something that is worth looking up the trigger warnings for. First you think, oh, she's really odd, why does she do this, why does she do that? And then in comes her co-worker Raymond, who basically not forces his way into her life, but wants to be her friend, and so he does befriend her, and he lets her, he encourages her to open up more, and then you slowly see why she is the way she is, and you root for her, you really do. There is a twist at the end, at the very end, which I did see coming. However, just because I saw it coming, it's not, I don't know if it's predictable, because I don't know. I saw it coming, but it didn't ruin the book for me. I think it's a really good twist. It really dives into the whole loneliness and just mental health in general, and I personally like books about real life, you know what I mean? Like, I think it encourages people to be more empathetic about others, because this is a prime example of someone who you might you know, encounter on your daily walk or something like that. I think reading books like this is something that I would encourage a lot of people to do, because like I said, I think it encourages people to be more empathetic, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5. And then the final book that I read in February, I actually have never read this, never seen the movie. I only know what happens in it because of the Family Guy special, but it is John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. So obviously we all know what happens, but if you don't, it's about two friends, George and Lenny. Lenny has learning difficulties, but this is based on the time where they were seen as simple and no one really helped or understood them or anything like that. George is almost like Lenny's only friend and family and like carer, in the sense that he has to tell Lenny how to act and what to do in order to stop him from kind of getting into trouble. Obviously, if you haven't read this, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but obviously there's the very infamous sad ending of this book. So I'm just editing this and I've realised that the rest of that recording was nowhere to be found. I don't know why it just ended there, but I just go on to say how I obviously cried at the end. If you know what happened, then you'll know why it was so sad. But I bawled my eyes out. I mean, like uncontrollably shaking when the thing about the old dog, when that was a thing. But yeah, I gave that a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed that. So if you're getting into classics, like what am I saying? Classic literature, then start with something like that. The thinner ones, I think you'll enjoy them more. Okay, so for March, I didn't read that many books, I'm not going to lie. I read 2 and I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. No, do you know what it was, right? I picked up a book that I was really excited about and it took me absolutely forever, but I was just determined to read it because I just could not. Yeah, it really disappointed me, I'm not going to lie. So we're going to save that for last because I'm not going to go on a rant. I just really didn't enjoy it, and it's the only book that I've read so far that I didn't really enjoy. So I picked up this said book that I didn't enjoy, just couldn't get into it, so I had to find another book to get me out of this slump. And so I picked My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly. This is a fairly short book, really short chapters. I think if you're in a bit of a slump, this is the perfect way to get out of it. The plot is really good. The only thing I will say is that I don't understand the ending. I was literally sat there like googling an explanation for the ending. I also had to read it like a few times over, and I know it's not just me because when I went on Goodreads there are a few people who were confused by the ending as well. And if you must know what it's about, it's obviously a dead giveaway. So it follows Korede, who is an older sister, and then her little sister Ayula. Ayula has a habit of killing her boyfriends, but it's never her fault. She's one of those girls. And Korede, as the big sister, as the amazing big sister Korede is, she then cleans up all of Ayula's messes. And then the issue really starts when Ayula visits Korede at the hospital she works at, and starts flirting and getting together with one of the doctors there that Corredis had a really big like crush on for so long, and she doesn't want him to die, basically is what she's saying. So it kind of goes into that, and I think the humour in it is that they are treating the fact that Corredis like, oh, just stop killing people, is the same as like, oh, just stop staying out so late, or stop taking my clothes, or stop using my makeup, or whatever, you know, like sisterly squabbles. But obviously it's murder. So this one I give a 3 out of 5. It's light-hearted in that sense, but I do think it is super entertaining, and again really helped with getting me out of this slump that the next book, which I have beef with, got me into. It pains me to say, but I really did not enjoy Richard Osman's The Thursday Murder Club. I had such high hopes for this bad boy. I paid full price for this bad boy. If I had to, I'll give it a 2 out of 5 just because the places that they talk about are very local to me, so it was easy to imagine it. Basically, it's about 4 friends who live in a retirement village. They are a little bit elderly. Every Thursday they get together to solve crimes. They usually work on unsolved cases that one of their other friends, who is currently in a coma in the book, because she's been in a police force, so she has a bunch of unsolved crimes which her and her friends do. So then there's a murder that's related to the retirement village that they live in, and so they go through all that. Honestly, even talking about it, I just, yeah, did not enjoy it. I know some people who do absolutely adore it though, so that's absolutely fine. I just couldn't get into it. I'm sorry, I couldn't get into it. So those are the 8 books that I read in January, February and March. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have read some of these books, let me know what you thought of them down below. No spoilers for anybody else, obviously. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!